Great. And we're recording. Yeah. Hello, everyone. I'll start out. This is Shaun Glaze, they, them pronouns. I run a lot of the research with LéTania Severe at King County Equity Now. And this is LéTania Severe.
That's me. She, her pronouns, also with the King County Equity Now research team. We're joined by a very, very, very exciting special guest. I will let you introduce yourself. Tell us who you are.
Hello. Yes, so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I'm Kirsten Harris-Talley. I'm a progressive activist mom running for State House Position 2 in the 37th Legislative District, and come with 20 years experience in progressive political work and activism. And I am really excited to chat with you all about how to make budgets accountable to the people as they should be.
Yes.
Thank you. We're so excited to have you. We keep chatting about it for a while and we're just like, it's like I feel like we're becoming real people.
I'm ecstatic. I mean, the work y'all are doing is so good. So thank you.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
One of the things that I was really excited to talk to you about in particular is you've served in Seattle City Council, and so much of the conversation lately has been like about the Seattle City Council and the budgeting process, and it's all kind of mystifying. So
yes.
If you could, share with us a little bit of your insight about what that's like, maybe things people wouldn't expect, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, so I had a unique opportunity coming off of Block the Bunker organizing. There was an opening on Seattle City Council when Mayor Murray was forced to step down. There was a change in order, and Tim Burgess came from the City Council from position 8 to serve as mayor. And during that moment, there was an interim term up. And it was a citywide position with position 8. This was in 2017. And it was right on the cusp of the city budget process. And it was a really unique opportunity because it was for the first time there was pressure from activists. A bunch of activists came together and demanded transparency in the process. So there was a 1-week application process. There was an appointment from 16 folks who applied. And I was appointed by that Friday. The application was the Sunday. I was appointed Friday, serving by Monday. And 51 days. Yeah, it was wild.
They're like, I hope you're ready to go.
It was wild. And 48 of those 51 days was budget deliberations, which was amazing. So literally the first day we were there was the first day of the budget process. And so I walked in with half my team that I had brought on since that Friday, and we hit the ground running. And it's interesting, right? Because it's this thing of you better come prepared. And I don't know that folks thought I would be prepared, but I had been working in nonprofit and coalition and campaign work for 20 years. And there is no better preparation for making really hard decisions about resources than any of those 3 things. So, and coming out of Block the Bunker, I mean, for folks who are really the heart of the Block the Bunker movement was oriented towards the budget. The whole dialogue was, why are we spending money in these ways? Why are we building more systems of harm? Why are we not investing upstream? How is it that folks don't know about this decision until the last moment when money's being dedicated to it? Why has there not been community involvement? So we had been for 2 years preparing, right, really rigorous reviews of data and budgets and deliberations. I'm a numbers nerd.
Awesome.
So I love budgets. I've managed many budgets, many large budgets, and I love it because numbers don't lie. Numbers tell us exactly what's happening, how it's happening. The whys we have to explore. That's the qualitative part of the work. But the quantitative, the truth is in the numbers. You can always find the truth when you follow the numbers. And I believe that budgets are moral documents. And it was a unique experience. And we rocked as much as we could in those 51 days as activists in that position.
Wow. Yes. Take me through like what one day looked like and that. I was just super curious. So you like wake up and then what?
I think the hardest day when I think about that was the consideration. The third day I was in office, I brought forward in collaboration with Council Member Mike O'Brien and council member Shama Sawant a proposal for an employee's hours tax. And it was, in many ways, the homes tax that we brought forward was the blueprint for now the jumpstart that was successful. And, you know, we were bringing forward at that point a $25 million a year revenue solution. We knew that it structurally was something that was sound for collecting taxes, because what we also have to know at the city level is it is very restricted what options we have to raise revenue. There are huge amounts of preemptions at the state level that keep cities and counties from raising dollars themselves. And so those preemptions are limiting the tools that we have. So what that looks like, right, is that out of about 23 municipal level progressive tax solutions, 5 are options in the city of Seattle. So that gives you an idea of how much it narrows and limits the scope of what you can use to raise dollars. So to have that proposal where we were going to have dollars then that we could dedicate directly to our houseless neighbors and building infrastructure and care around them. We were at that point coming on the cusp of the 3rd year of a declared emergency around homelessness with no end in sight, margins only growing, more and more families on the streets. And we found ourselves, right, having a vote about whether that was going to pass. That was the hardest day of the budget for sure, because we knew if that did not pass and we did not have that 25 million in revenue, we were going to have a line item review of the budget and nickel and dime every line. And we came up 1 vote short. We did not, we were not able to pass that revenue. It was a short cycle. We only had 2.5 weeks, right, to bring this revenue proposal together because it was within the container of the budget. And so then that's when the days got long. You were on 5 to 6 hour dais days. You were having line item reviews of numbers. The review would go through every council member's office. All the notes would be reconciled by the budget chair. And you were getting new drafts sometimes every 3 hours of where the budget stood and where your items were being prioritized. So you were continually chasing down your priorities to make sure they were having enough votes to generate and move on to the next level after that. So that's a day I always remember, because really we had to sit, and we took a good half an hour as a team and grieved that moment of losing that revenue, and then got to work about what we were going to do to hold the line on everything that we knew communities needed. So that means you wake up in the morning, you get on the phone. The first thing is you're in emails, you're sitting down with your team. We did everything in a communal team orientation. Different offices run differently, but we were all activists. So we believe in that collective process for decision making. Going through, deciding what the priorities were for that day. I'd be on the dais, the team would be doing their thing. You're text messaging while you're figuring stuff out in real time and taking votes in real time. And then we would go back, and every break, make sure we were trying every way out to get that information out as quickly as possible to community. So that's email blasts, right? Anything we could do to get interviews, anything we could do to get the word out to other activists and organizations who are working on the outside to keep the energy up. And so it was, grinding like that every day until you got it over the finish line. It was good work. It was hard work. I'm glad we did it in a communal way so we could all carry it together.
Yes. And LéTania, does this sound familiar?
Yeah, I know.
I was like, oh my God, is it always like this?
I know. Yes, it is. It is always like this. Yeah, it's a lot of work. It's just, it shouldn't be this hard, but that's what it is. So we fight.
I love how we fight so hard. And I love how you talked about how you're like really focused on bringing community along with you and like why, and like how that was just part of your process. It's how you built your team. It's also how your team operated, and it's just a big priority for you. Why is community voice so important to you?
For me, it's the way I grew up. I grew up very, very poor in rural Missouri. I'm the oldest of 4. For much of my life, my mom was a single mom, and my godmother was from the rural South. She had to quit school in 6th grade, child of sharecroppers. And where I grew up, everyone was poor. I didn't actually understand the pressures of economic disparity till I went to college, because I just grew up somewhere where everyone was dirt poor. So, it's just, we had a shared experience. And what that meant was anytime anything came up for folks, you all pitched in what you had. Like, that's just the only way you could get through. And I really lived in that kind of community where folks really did that for each other. I was thinking the other day when my youngest sister was born, she was born at home. and it was $300 to pay for the doctor. And I remember my parents were fretting, and our church had done a collection that morning and brought exactly $300 that day, right? And those sorts of things would happen, right, where someone needed something and it would show up. And I just always carried that through. I think it's a unique way to grow up, it's something. When I started to understand the dynamics, I went to college in Chicago and very quickly saw what wealth disparity looked like, very quickly. I mean, and Chicago's a highly segregated city. It's a different type of segregation. I say Chicago had segregation with some preservation attached to it. Seattle, it feels like a dilution of preservation in some ways, the way segregation was here. So it's something I saw very early on in college there as well. Cabrini Green was happening when I was in Chicago. It was one of the first things I ever sort of got wrapped up in organizing around as a college student. That was a forced removal of residents of what had been a public housing projects in Chicago, that the city had really sat on it, kept it isolated from any development until a certain value of the land came, and then was forcefully removing residents. It made national, international news because of the way the city handled that. And of course, disproportionately was Black families being displaced in deeply segregated neighborhood. So for me, just carrying that always, it's like you have to do it together. And in my activism, I knew who the best organizers were. And let me be honest, I've been on super fancy political initiatives, ballot initiatives, everything. The most sophisticated campaigns I've ever worked on were activist campaigns, hands down. Like the work that Block the Bunker did, the way it was nimble and emergent and responsive, right? And didn't miss a beat and brought more folks in. We're seeing that now. I mean, seeing the city council vote last week, that was about community coming together in a collective voice, in a collective direction, and not stopping until folks really saw the clarity that they were bringing as community. And that's what I've always seen, the clarity that comes from community coming forward. Community knows what they're dealing with, the most sophisticated data, the most sophisticated questions, right? The nuance. If community is bringing a question that government doesn't know the answer to, that tells you, I think, right? who's sort of on the pulse of what we should be exploring. So for me, it's about the vision and collective clarity on it being the right answer. And then once you have that, it just takes will and resources to make it happen, right?
Absolutely.
That's what elected officials have, political will, and they're supposed to wield the resources through the budget to make sure that the people's money that paid for taxes goes back to the people. That's what the whole thing's about. So that's how you got to do it.
Yes.
I know. Yes and yes and 100%. Yes. That, all of that.
What has your all's experience been? Because the budget just started now. We're at the start of the budget process, right?
I know. When you said that, council last week, I was like, shit, yeah, that was just last week, huh? That was
a lifetime ago. Like
it feels so long
12
ago.
12 years older now than I was.
I know. That was just the rebalance 2020. Good Lord.
Oh my God. The easy part.
Easy
part. Yeah, I mean, I will only speak for myself. It is really exciting to me for a community to be able to be coming on in a paid wave to be able to help inform this next budgetary cycle. Part of me is not, part of me does pay attention to the fact that city council and the mayor's office had a chance this summer to make this happen sooner in a way that wasn't as forced and coercive and destructive to community. If they had got their priorities, aligned, and the mayor's office had decided, oh, I guess I'll actually listen to what community is telling me, then we could have kicked this off in a way, at a pace that was, would be really ideal to be able to maximize communities' participation, more barriers to be removed, etc. And so for me to see it play out the way it did, where it took a lot of community pressure to get them at the point where they wrote the damn bill, and then we're okay, just so you know, you writing this and endorsing this means that you're going to have to override that inevitable veto, because we do not believe the mayor really cares about us. And they're like, And then
Yeah,
like the mayor's
sure.
just, yeah. And the mayor's like, I veto it, right? And then we're like, yep, we know, because you hate us. And then
Yeah.
city council's like, oh,
I don't know. Should we?
I mean, it's an interesting thing I have found in Washington state politics. You know, I come from East Coast people. My father was born and raised in segregated Baltimore, right? And East Coast politics is clear. There are separations of branches of government for a reason, right? And each branch holds the other accountable.
Yes.
And that's something that there's a softness here about that along all sorts of trajectories.
So
that's sort of unique about Washington state politics. So yes. And we saw it in real time, right? Like what I just offered about the employee hours tax, right? What happened when we had, when we didn't have enough vote in that budget cycle is that we had to have a progressive revenue task force. I got to be co-chair of that task force along with Tony Toe from Home Site was the other community co-chair. And we had the pleasure of working beside Councilmember Lorena Gonzalez and Councilmember Lisa Herbold. And I love that because if you all know, the person on the city council who looks at data, cares about data, make sure, like Lisa Herbold's all about the data, right? So we knew we'd have all those resources to bear. And they then passed, we even brought a bigger proposal forward of a revenue goal of $175 million, right, for housing infrastructure. It passed unanimously. There was then a reverse wave, if you remember the no tax, right, this wave of conservatism, and they reversed their own vote within 3 weeks of that vote, right? So these pressures are very interesting in this terrain around revenue. It's very interesting.
That's true. If there's no dollars associated with it, you don't see the same kind of back and forth, maybe, maybe not. Once there's like actual dollars, which to me is like once there's action, like a real thing,
right,
is when you start to see like push comes to shove and people start to waffle. And you're like, but you said.
Well, but here's the thing, right? There's plenty of good policy on the books that never made a difference because it was never implemented and it was never resourced. Right? A law is only as good as its actual infrastructure and ability to make people's lives thrive, period. And that's one of the things I've learned over 20 years. I've seen plenty of good policy do nothing and sit on a shelf because it wasn't resourced. And you're absolutely right. Once folks know the resources are there, then things can actually change, right? Which is what we want. That's the whole goal.
Right. That's the point, right?
That's the whole point.
do that work.
Yes. So I know we're short. We're kind of running towards the end of our normal podcast time. This has been such a treat. Absolute pleasure. I could talk about budget stuff all the time with you because it's just like, it is really cool to see someone who really gets why. Like why we do these things, why do we have policy, why do we have budgetary decisions? Like it isn't just so that people can feel better or feel like they're making a difference. It is literally all about improving people's lives, creating a situation where people can thrive, and just like making sure that community is not only like brought along, but is like really centered in this process, is leading, is bringing that expertise and that nuance to be able to produce effective policy and not just something that looks good on paper. So yeah, it's just, I don't know, it's such a treat to talk to you today. We usually shift to calls to action next. If you don't mind, like we'll kind of knock out some of ours, but I'd love to hold up yours as well. So let's is that okay?
Yes.
Okay, cool. LéTania, let's do ours and then let's give Kirsten all the time in the world.
Absolutely. Sounds good. Yes, please continue to tell the mayor to free the funds. We need, that includes the Jumpstart money, the Green New Deal, labor, and our scale up funds. Just release the funds. The community has spoken, council has spoken, release the funds. There'll be a link in the description. Also, please continue to complete our needs assessment survey. That link will be there as well. And support the new Black-led community research. We had our press conference today with our researchers. They were awesome. Support them, work with them on their projects if you're available to volunteer. We'd love to have you a part of the team. And I'll turn it over to you. What would you like folks to do today?
Yes. So for me, running this campaign, we're running a really unique campaign. We're not taking any corporate PAC dollars. We're not taking any fossil fuel dollars. We're not taking any police union dollars. And that means what we're building is from community and for community. We would love folks to plug in. We have a lot of volunteer opportunities and language opportunities. We're really trying to reach every part of the 37th district. This is the most diverse district in the entire state of Washington. And if we can get it right for the Black, Brown, Indigenous, youth, elders, and working families in this district, it'll be right everywhere in Washington for real, for real. So please plug in at electkht.org for some plug-in, meeting neighbors. We have tons of social distance opportunities. And then when I'm thinking at the state level, we are hands down the richest state in the country, period. We have more millionaires per capita than any other state, and we have the most upside down tax code in the entire country, which means when it comes to 2021 and the state level budget deliberations, we need to make sure no austerity is the direction that we go. We are still not recovered from the austerity measures that were taken between 2006 and 2010. We have been divesting from education, healthcare, you name it. We've been divesting from it. We need to invest deeply in community, which means raising revenue at the state level and holding the line on health and human services. So there's a no austerity pledge. Please, if you believe that at the state level we can get it right by our neighbors, which I tell you we can, sign on to that no austerity pledge. And then the other thing at the state level, prescriptions and restrictions from the federal and state level keep so much of the safety net programs we have from reaching our immigrant and refugee neighbors and families. And that is a travesty. Those are policies that we need to change. But until then, we need a dedicated fund that will make sure we can wrap care around them as well. One America Votes is organizing that. The mayor, or not the mayor, rather, the governor has released $40 million. The goal is $100 million. And that's for what we know of the volume needed in Washington statewide, which is where all of our immigrant and refugee families are in rural, urban, and suburban communities. So we need to keep the pressure up for $60 million more. So please work beside One America Votes and others in coalition to make sure that we have those dollars in place by 2021 so we can make sure we make decisions that really help people weather this storm right now.
Thank you.
Yes. Yes.
We will put those links as we get them into the description of this video so you can follow along, you can share, you can, Miracle Joy would say, like, subscribe.
That's right. That's right.
And I'm happy to do this anytime y'all want to talk budget numbers, data.
Awesome.
Call me. We can have just a, Black, queer, femme, kiki.
Yes.
Love
it. Here for it.
Yes. Thank you for, making it accessible. The conversation is very at the level of people who don't want to read budgets but want to know how to make people's lives better. And so I really appreciate that you really connected it to the community, and how you spoke about the budget was very clear and understandable.
Well, thank you all for what you're doing. The data you all are putting out also, I want to say that because working in this work, we see data all the time that people are like, what is this, right? Making sure it's socially accessible, right? And shareable. That's the difference too. Folks can look at the data you all are creating and share it with their neighbors so there's more clarity. So keep up the great work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we will pass that along to the community research team.
That's right. That's right. And I'm so excited that I live in 37, so that I can vote for you again.
Deep appreciation.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, we hope you have a great night, and we will see you next time.
That's right.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Bye.